And now, it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Welcome to Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm George Gordon. Are you where you want to be financially? A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for yourself and your family. And on Boomer Life today, we're talking about your financial future with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services Incorporated. We've heard retirees have been surprised at how expensive retirement can be and are equally surprised at how much tax they can end up paying when it comes to accessing investments that they had put aside for retirement. And we also hear from your associate Paige Brettel, who's joining us, about her planning perspectives as seen coming into the industry. Welcome, Paige. Welcome, Jim.
Morning.
Jim.
Morning.
You know, one of the things in our last show that we talked about with Carmen was, I thought was so poignant. And when you're trying to deal with people and help people, the last thing that anybody wants to admit is that they're not prepared. They have to have that come to realization that I don't know. I don't know where I stand financially. I don't know if I can retire, and I'm ashamed that I haven't been able to do that, and I've got to get some help. And this is where not just somebody like you, but you, because you have a great philosophy in listening to people, and often that is the most critical part, is that they, for the first time, are talking to somebody that cares about their situation.
How many times do we have someone come to meet us, and we sit down for the very first time, and we hit them head on with, can you tell me what your goals are, okay? I have to be honest. I don't think most people know what their goals are, okay? And now we've got them really nervous, okay? How do you build on that, okay? I think in terms of the hydro bill, okay, who knows what their hydro bill is going to look like in 17 years? How do you plan for stuff like that?
Well, that's a great point, because, if you figure even at a reduced rate of inflation of 2% in 17 years, that means it's going to be over 30% more than what it is today. Well, that can be a lot of coin if your income, as you say, from retirement planning is set today at a certain level, and it didn't take that into account. But I think that you mentioned something that is so important to people, because they do fear. They fear, they don't trust themselves, so how do they trust anybody else? And one of the things that I think that you're very well equipped to do is listening to people to hear what they have to say, as opposed to listening so you can jump in with the first product that you think you can sell them. You want to hear what their issues are and what their hopes and fears are and what their dreams are, so that you can say, then you can start putting together a plan. And it's never just, it's seldom, I would guess, just one meeting.
I think one of the challenges I have in my industry is people look to the planners out there, to comb out all of the uncertainties that they possibly can. And I have to suggest, I think there's a little bit of a fallacy attached to that, okay? We're making an assumption, that you're going to put a stake in the road 20, 30 years out there, okay? And we're going to call that retirement. Okay? And we're going to aim you towards that retirement with the assumption that your plan is going to help guide you there, okay? And that's based on the assumption that maybe all the different asset classes have the same relative performance going forward. Their correlation doesn't change. You don't change jobs a number of times. Your circumstances don't have an awful lot of changes between now and then. So I think really what we need to help people understand is, at the end of the day, the plan is not the product, okay? The advisor is really what it's all about. It's about having that relationship so that you can work as a team and engage on regular course corrections, okay, and adjust your plan based on the circumstances and kind of measuring where you are. I think maybe that's an approach that makes a bit more sense.
Well, that would certainly separate you, and I don't want to make this a stereotype for your industry, but some are better than others at adopting this philosophy that you've got, is listening, starting with the plan that looks good today based on today's your income, your spending, all of those things. but what about tomorrow? So you have to be in constant contact with them. And so if as things start to change, does it behoove you to sort of pick up the phone and call your client and just say, have you noticed this, or have you thought about that, or anything changed, anything we should talk about? Is that part of your approach?
I work with a lot of folks who look at just all of the different things that comprehensive planning can entail. And I don't think you can take it all on in one sitting. You probably have to break it off into bite-sized pieces, okay? I'd love to know who this quote belongs to, but I think the brain can only endure what the backside can. So there comes a point where you can't put anything more in. Okay, right. So to make this, I think, more effective, you have to be rather focused for short periods of time on concepts and start tying the pieces together. And I think that's what we want to do.
Well, you're building a relationship then with the client. This is not just another number, somebody that you sell products to. This is somebody that is trusting you, right? And you're trying to earn that trust every time you pick up the phone or you have them in to talk about, because they may not recognize some of the signs of change in the market, areas of investment and so on. So you're constantly talking to them. And if they're good enough to pick up the phone and ask you questions, you have to be there to answer.
You know, I was sitting down with a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about what was important to them, okay? And we're talking about today, not necessarily at some point theoretically in the future. What's important to them today? And they were talking about, well, you know, I want to get my kids well educated, okay? I said, okay, well, what do you think that's going to look like? Can we talk a little bit around that in terms of some of the things that we might have to do to make that happen for you? And then what we're going to try and do is apply our best guesses with the knowledge and education experiences that we've got to try and make that an outcome for you, so that as we meet each year going forward, we'll get a sense of whether that goal is more likely going to happen, or whether we're going to have to get a bit more aggressive at pursuing the goal, so that we have some sort of a hand in monitoring the process and helping you get there and identifying and achieving that goal.
I think that one of the questions that was put to me when I had that great epiphany moment, I don't think I'm ready for retirement, and it was and the gentleman that I am and still deal with today asked me, "How old do you think you're going to live to be?" And I stopped and I said, "Well, I have no idea." I said, my dad's side of the family, you know, they were kind of mid-70s, but they were a lot older. And he said, so nobody in your family has ever really sat down and said, okay, we're all going to live to be 75. You could live to be 90. And I looked at him and I thought, holy cow, because there was an old joke that my dad said, I could retire tomorrow as long as I die the day after, which wasn't, you know, far out of the truth. And it's a little cold sounding, but it was the truth. And so, you know, talking to people about and changing the game plan as you go along is because, you know, you're not going to want to go to Hawaii every year after maybe 80 or 85, that things are going to change. And people have to understand that, you know, I got to spend my money, but I got to spend it wisely. Is it a constant, like the pages of questions that keep coming out every time you talk to them? It's like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?
I think we're absolutely horrible at imagining ourselves, our future selves, say 20 years down the road, okay? Right. When I ask people, you know, what do you think that's going to look like, okay? Not a whole lot of people have a really strong idea of retirement, what it's going to look like, because it's so far off, okay? And even those who are within 5 years of retirement, you know, their mindset is still stuck in their work identity and their family and their urgencies that are going on today, and that identity of retirement, what it's really going to look like. If we can take the time and we can tease that out, if we can help them create a vision, okay, and we can make that technicolor for them, okay, now all of a sudden that plan moves beyond numbers to things that actually count. That's what we want to do.
Living. Perfect. You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm George Gordon. Today we're talking with Jim Doyle, the Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services, Inc. To learn how Jim Doyle can help you, you can call him at 604-682-5431 or email Jim at jim.doyle@investorsgroup.com. All right, we're just getting out of one of the craziest times of the year for you, and that, of course, is the helping people with their RRSP and TFSA investment decisions. But you're also doing more. It's just the beginning of the planning process. You're helping people integrate their investment decisions with their personal financial plans. It's a good time to do it, I guess, with we figure out what we owe the government or what the government might be giving us back, and how do we get there? How do we get out of it? And what do we do in the year and the years after that?
You know, I love the fact that people's attention are actually focused on their money a little bit at this time of the year. I got to do stuff, right? Okay. So we're accustomed to people asking things like rates of return on their investments. Okay. How much tax refund is this RSP contribution going to generate for me? Okay. How will this move me closer to my goals? Can you show me? Okay. We're starting to move into that sort of realm. Okay. But now when we start throwing things like a question like longevity, like you just talked about there, okay, how long do you think you need to make this money last? Okay. What do you want that to look like? Okay. And that's a number. Okay. And for a lot of folks, it's a significant problem because no one's actually asked them these types of questions before. And without those questions being asked, how can you plan for the possibility that, hey, maybe you might live a little longer than everybody's thinking that you could?
And when we speak of longevity, and we're going to deal with this coming up in our next segment, is that men and women are not created equal, and the numbers will show you that one gender more than the other is likely to outsurvive the other one, and that requires a different set of planning. We're going to deal with that. You're listening to CIL 650. George Gordon with you with Jim Doyle, and we're going to learn more about the importance of planning and having somebody you can trust to do your financial planning. This is Boomer Life.